Hey guys, so if you follow me on any sort of social media, you probably already know that I had kind of a really exciting weekend last weekend. You can obviously already tell from the title, but on Sunday I was a seat filler at the primetime Emmys, which was absolutely crazy. So if you don't know what a seat filler is, it's actually pretty self-explanatory. We essentially just fill empty seats at the Emmys, so there are a lot of times when people have to get up from their seats during the show. They could be accepting an award, presenting an award, or, you know, just getting up to go to the bathroom, getting a drink, and that leaves an empty spot in the audience. And if there's a bunch of empty spots in the audience, it looks really bad on camera. So as a seat filler, your job is essentially just to sit in that seat until the person comes back. It's really easy. So anyone can be a seat filler, which is awesome. You just have to apply for it. So I applied using a website called Seat Fillers and More. It looked like they do a lot of award shows, but this was my first time ever doing anything like this, so I can't say like if they've always done the Emmys or how it works, but they just did it for this particular show. You had to apply online and send them a headshot as well, and then also they had to do a background check. So after you sent all that in, you had to wait about like a week and a half, and they actually did it randomly, so they pulled from a lottery. They weren't like looking at your headshot deciding, you know, like, oh, well, she's not pretty enough to be at the Emmys. Like, no, it was all random. They don't care what you look like. You did have to pass the background check, though, because it is a high-profile event. They couldn't have anything, like, crazy happening there, obviously. So I found out that I got it, like, it was less than a week before the show. So I was really excited. I was kind of bummed, though, because my friend had applied with me, and she didn't get it. So that was kind of disappointing, because I had to go through this by myself. And it was kind of scary, because, like, I didn't really know what was going to happen. I didn't know what was going on, but obviously I went through with it. So I had to go buy, like, a fancy gown dress so I would fit in. And when the day of the show came, I was all set to go. So in the email that I was accepted with, there was, like, a whole list of, like, what to do the day of, what to wear, where to park, all like your expectations. So we had to park at a certain garage around the theater between 1:45 and 3:15, and you basically would park at the garage. They would check you in. They made sure that you were the person you said you were. They checked your ID, and then they gave you a little wristband just to show like, hey, you're a seat filler. So I got there around 2:30, and there was already like a pretty big line of people waiting that had already checked in at that point. And we ended up waiting there until about like 3:45 before they did anything. So that was kind of boring because you can't bring your cell phone with you as a seat filler. You're not supposed to. So I had locked mine in my car. They also offered to like check them for you, but I didn't want anyone else handling my phone, so I put mine in my car. So I just had to like stand there for an hour, which sucked. I brought water with me though, so that was good. I was able to bring like a granola bar. They limited you to like a little wristlet. You couldn't bring anything bigger than that, like you couldn't have a big purse or a backpack or anything, so I just had my wristlet and I carried a bottle of water. I made some friends in line, which was cool. Most of the people there were also by themselves because the same thing would happen where, you know, you enter with your friends and then your friends don't get picked, but obviously it's the Emmys, so you're not going to skip out on it. So once 3:45 finally rolled around, they started escorting us towards the theater. We walked all the way over there. We had to go kind of like around the red carpet. They obviously weren't going to let us go on the red carpet because that's for famous people. We also had to go through a metal detector before we actually got into the theater, but that was something that everyone had to do. It wasn't just for seat fillers. It was just anyone going to the Emmys needed to go through security, so that was fine. And then we got there probably around 4:15, and they just had us line up outside the theater. Like we were inside the building, but we were like outside in the hallway before you enter the door to get into the theater, if that makes sense. So again, we were standing there for like an hour waiting. It was kind of cool though, because right outside the window there was a red carpet, and it wasn't the one that's on TV, but it was one just for people that weren't going to be on like TV. But we did see some celebrities walk by, like Jimmy Fallon walked by, Sofia Vergara, so that was really cool. It got everyone kind of pumped up. Then 5 minutes before the show starts, at like 4:55, they finally put us into the theater. Right before we went in, they kind of like really quickly established what was going on. They were just kind of like, you guys have all seat filled before, right? Because I guess to get into a high-profile event like the Emmys, most people kind of had to work their way up and seat fill at some smaller events before they'd get picked for this. That didn't happen with me. This was my first time doing it at all, so I got really lucky. But there were definitely a lot of us that hadn't done it before, so they explained really quickly how it was going to work. There were a bunch of people that had like orange wristbands on their lanyard, and they were our coordinators, so they were the ones that were going to be telling us where to sit. But essentially, if we found an empty seat, we could just sit down. They weren't really like strict about where to sit. They were just kind of there to help us find places if we, you know, were stuck or in a rush. And then we were also told that if anyone told us to get up, it didn't have to be one of the coordinators, just whoever was coming back. If someone said get up, you get up. you listen to them and find another seat. So with that, we went into the theater. Like I said, the show was starting in 5 minutes. By the time I actually got to the seats parts, just because there's a big crowd, it was hard to like kind of get your way through. The show was starting in a minute and they had a countdown on the screen. So I get to the front and there was literally a seat, one single seat, front and center. So I sit down in that and I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna be front and center, this is amazing. And then literally, I think the show was starting in 20 seconds and this woman comes up and she's like, you're a Seatfiller? And I'm like, yeah, and she's like, get up. So I had to get up and I ended up getting seated like 7 rows back and I was still in the center, so I was pretty happy. I got to watch the opening number and all that from that seat. Eventually that person did come back though, and I got seated kind of far in the back. Like, I think the people came like really close to when the commercial was ending, so the coordinators were just like, go walk backwards, walk backwards. That was kind of like the protocol. If you were cutting close with time, you just go towards the back of the theater where the camera really wouldn't see that you were up and not in your seat. So I sat down, I was kind of off to the side, I was really far back. No one was really around me that I recognized. And I was there for a good like 2 or 3 segments before I was finally like, all right, like, I'm not sitting in the back the entire time. I want to go to the front where all the celebrities are. So the next commercial came and I decided to get up and walk towards the front, and I found a seat coordinator. I was cutting it close, the commercial was about to end, and eventually they were like, oh, there's a seat. So they had me sitting second row in the center, like second row. I had to ask John Travolta to get up so I could get through the row. It was crazy. And David Schwimmer was sitting behind me. I could see John Mayer in the pit playing music, just like I had a really good angle of him under the stage. And then, you know, the show's going on, I'm kind of sitting there freaking out because, like, Jimmy Kimmel's right there, like, I'm in the second row, and I kind of look over and there's this woman, and she's got darker hair, but her face looked really familiar, and that's when I realized it was Amy Poehler, and I was staring at her for a really long time, so I felt bad, and I think she noticed, and she kind of, like, looked at me funny. And then I noticed Tina Fey sitting right next to her, just casually, and then I looked to the other side, and, oh, it's Amy Schumer is in front of me, too, like, I was freaking out. It was so crazy. I was literally surrounded by celebrities. And I mean, they were all over the place. Like, I saw like Dancing with the Stars people, there were talk show hosts, like James Corden. There were so many people I couldn't name them all. I was just so starstruck, but you can't do anything. You have to stay professional and just like act like you belong and do what you're told and not bother anyone. Plus, like, I didn't have my phone anyway, so like, well, I couldn't, you know, take pictures with anyone. I was just kind of there. So, you know, the show's going on, and if you watch the Emmys, there was a part where Jimmy Kimmel comes out and he's like, oh, you guys must be hungry. Well, my mom made everyone sandwiches. So then Jimmy comes out with a box of lunches, and so did the Stranger Things kids, which was awesome because I'm a huge fan of that show now. I just finished it, and they're handing out sandwiches, and the break starts and they're still handing out sandwiches. So I actually got a lunch, and it was like half of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a juice box and a cookie and an apple and then a napkin that had a note from Jimmy's mom. Like, I can actually go get that, hold on. So there's the note from Jimmy's mom that she left in our lunches. I put it on our fridge in our apartment now. So that was awesome. I was like afraid to eat though, one because I was surrounded by all these like famous people, and I don't know, like I felt weird about just like eating a sandwich in front of them, but I also was mostly concerned that I would start eating and then someone would be like, hey, that's my seat, and I'd have to like quickly throw all this food in a bag and like run. So I didn't actually eat it until I got home, but I was so excited about that because now I have like a souvenir. How cool. So I ended up being in that seat for like almost an hour, maybe even a whole hour. I wasn't really watching the time very well, but I was on TV multiple times just because there were famous people all over me, like all around me. You could see me when they're handing out the sandwiches. At one point, Kerry Washington was literally sitting right in front of me, and I was there when the award she was nominated for happened, so when they did like the little shot of like her face as she was nominated, I'm just sitting there right behind her. It was crazy. So like I said, I was there for an hour, and eventually the people came back and reality came crashing back down, and I didn't get a seat as good as that for the rest of the night, but honestly at that point I didn't care. I knew I was on TV at that point because I saw myself on the screen. I had a sandwich from Jimmy Kimmel, I was surrounded by some really awesome people, and I was pretty satisfied. I think by the end of the night I had sat in about 6 or 7 seats, and it was absolutely incredible. The atmosphere was so amazing. Like, I'm studying television, so getting to be at a place that celebrated the best of the best in television was just so incredible to me. And there was just such like a camaraderie, I guess. Like, everyone was really proud of each other, and like someone would win an award and like everyone would stand up because they were like so excited that those people got the award. And during the commercials it was like a reunion because everyone was getting up and like, hey, like, haven't seen you in a while, like, how's it going? And it was just so cool to watch. I would 100% seat fill again. But hopefully somewhere in the near future I will just be at the Emmys because I'm nominated for something, or like because I'm working in TV and they invited me, so it was really cool just to be there as someone who wants to work in the television industry. So yeah, that was it. That was my Emmy night. If you have any questions about the Emmys or seat filling, feel free to leave a comment. I know it's kind of like a hot topic and not a lot of people know about it, so I have no problem answering questions. But yeah, I hope I can do something like that again, and I hope you guys enjoyed my stories, and I will see you later. Bye!